welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of every recipient of the Medal of Honor. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrosch, and I'm back. This is now present me. I'm not pre-recording this one. I am doing this one on Sunday. We got back yesterday from our trip. Actually had the pleasure of seeing a large banner at the Orlando International Airport with Medal of Honor recipient Melvin Morris. It was pretty cool. Did not expect to see that on my travels, but always cool. My kids recognized it pretty quickly, which also is pretty cool. So I am back. Thank you all to those who reached out to me, wishing me a good trip down there at Disney World. It is definitely nice to be back into the swing of things after a week off. I have lots of work to catch up on, and of course, writing and recording more episodes for this show. A quick little bit of housekeeping here. I want to kind of touch base with all of you and let you all know, if you don't already know, that Tales of Honor Podcast is pretty much everywhere. It's on Instagram. It's Tales of Honor Podcast on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Like I said, pretty much everywhere where you can consume media. It's on Spotify as well, and of course Apple Podcasts, which is the main one. Pretty much everywhere you get your media from, you can consume Tales of Honor Podcast, which is really cool, including Facebook, because that is a very easy share to do. Just share the video. It converts the audio into an image, which I produce separately, and puts the audio over top of that, creating a video, and that is very easy to share with others on Facebook. So please do me a favor. If you're not already following me on any of those other platforms, please do so and give a share. Subscribe, you know the deal. Do all those cool things that cool people do. If you don't do that, you're not really a cool person, are you? I'm a cool person, and so are you. Okay, great. Now we got that done and out of the way. Let's move on to episode 277, which is today's episode. And like all of last month and this month, it will cover the Korean War. And now, a tale of honor. John was born in Luzon, Philippines on the 8th of February, 1904. His family moved to Minnesota, and he had wanted to attend West Point, but his poor eyesight kept him from attending, and he ended up studying engineering at Princeton University. John was a member of the Reserve Officers Training Corps, and when he graduated from Princeton in 1926, he received a varsity letter in pistol and his commission in the Army Reserve. During World War II, John spent much of his time at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, training artillery troops since he was considered to be a great teacher. He eventually would be deployed to Germany in command of an artillery battery, and after the war, John was able to get out of more classroom duty in exchange for deploying to Korea. He had wanted more combat assignments, and when he arrived in Korea, he was immediately put to work, and it was his actions over his first 12 days in country that would earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, Lieutenant Colonel Page, a member of 10 Corps Artillery, distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action above and beyond the call of duty in a series of exploits. On 29 November, Lieutenant Colonel Page left 10 Corps headquarters at Hamhung with the mission of establishing traffic control on the main supply route to 1st Marine Division positions and those of some Army elements on the Chosin Reservoir Plateau. Having completed his mission, Lieutenant Colonel Page was free to return to the safety of Hamhung, but chose to remain on the plateau to aid an isolated signal station, thus being cut off with the elements of the Marine Division. After rescuing his jeep driver by breaking up an ambush near a destroyed bridge, Lieutenant Colonel Page reached the lines of a surrounded Marine garrison at Kodo-ri. He then voluntarily deployed and trained a reserve force of assorted Army troops trapped with the Marines. By exemplary leadership and tireless devotion, he made an effective tactical unit available. In order that casualties might be evacuated, an airstrip was improvised on frozen ground partly outside of the Kodo-ri defense perimeter, which was continually under enemy attack. During 2 such attacks, Lieutenant Colonel Page exposed himself on the airstrip to direct fire on the enemy, and twice mounted the rear deck of a tank, manning the machine gun on the turret to drive the enemy back into no man's land. On 3 December, while being flown low over enemy lines in a light observation plane, Lieutenant Colonel Page dropped hand grenades on Chinese positions and sprayed foxholes with automatic weapon fire from his carbine. After 10 days of constant fighting, the Marine and Army units in the vicinity of the chosen reservoir had succeeded in gathering at the edge of the plateau, and Lieutenant Colonel Page was flown to Hamhung to arrange for artillery support of the beleaguered troops attempting to break out. Again, Lieutenant Colonel Page refused an opportunity to remain in safety and returned to give every assistance to his comrades. As the column slowly moved south, Lieutenant Colonel Page joined the rear guard. When it neared the entrance to a narrow pass, it came under frequent attacks on both flanks. Mounting an abandoned tank, Lieutenant Colonel Page manned the machine gun, braved heavy return fire, and covered the passing vehicles until the danger diminished. Later, when another attack threatened his section of the convoy, then in the middle of the pass, Lieutenant Colonel Page took a machine gun to the hillside and delivered effective counterfire, remaining exposed while men and vehicles passed through the ambuscade. On the night of 10 December, the convoy reached the bottom of the pass, but was halted by a strong enemy force at the front and on both flanks. Deadly small arms fire poured into the column. Realizing the danger to the column as it lay motionless, Lieutenant Colonel Page fought his way to the head of the column and plunged forward into the heart of the hostile position. His intrepid action so surprised the enemy that their ranks became disordered and suffered heavy casualties. Heedless of his safety, as he had been throughout the preceding 10 days, Lieutenant Colonel Page remained forward, fiercely engaging the enemy single-handed until mortally wounded. By his valiant and aggressive spirit, Lieutenant Colonel Page enabled friendly forces to stand off the enemy. His outstanding courage, unswerving devotion to duty, and supreme self-sacrifice reflect great credit upon Lieutenant Colonel Page and are in the highest tradition of the military service. Originally, these actions earned him the Navy Cross, but it wasn't until the 25th of April, 1957, that the Navy Cross would be upgraded to the Medal of Honor with a waiver from Congress being needed due to the length of time that had passed. A military Sealift command ship was named in his honor, as well as Camp Page at the DMZ until it was closed in 2005. John had been married to Margaret Wood and had 2 children, Margaret and Dennis. John Upshur Dennis Page was 46 years old when he died, and he is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, Section 4, Lot 2743-A-B. And that was a Tale of Honor. Thank you for listening to Tales of Honor Podcast. Head on over to talesofhonorpodcast.com where you can read these stories, see other ways to support the show, and easily share a story with your friends and family. Tales of Honor Podcast is written and produced by Christoph Ambrosch, and theme song, A New Beginning, is by Ben Sound. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrosch. Thanks for listening.